Hello there. We're barely getting started with this video about Paddington. Hello, welcome back to the James Ramen Reviews for yet another episode. In today's episode, you probably think to yourself, why on earth did you sound like a posh British character? Well, in today's video, if you couldn't tell already, I'm actually going to be reviewing for you Paddington, but there's a twist to this. This will be Paddington and Paddington 2, because I'm actually going to be seeing Paddington in Peru next week. And so I felt like, in preparation of that, in case I review other things in between that, I'm like, might not have enough time to review it as like a few days before I go and see the third movie. So we're going to do this type of different review. And so this will not be a spoiler type of review, because with the Paddington movies and when I go to explain how I feel about them, they aren't these types of movies that are like something you've never seen before, if you know what I mean. Like, these movies, you exactly get what you are promised when you see the title and you see what it's having to offer, stuff like that. And so I'll give you a bit of context though, just in case you're wondering how maybe I have felt in the past about Paddington and Paddington 2 before I go on ahead and give you the plot summary to the best of my knowledge and then explain how I felt about the movies and give them a rating out of 10. And so, in the past with Paddington 1 and 2, I feel like with the original, as a kid, I absolutely loved it. And I remember seeing it on TV and I just absolutely loved the movie. With the second movie, it was like I might have only seen it once. And, the second movie came out a few years after the original. So, it's kind of hard to tell with that. And so, that's kind of my most simple way of describing it, because I didn't know why I liked Paddington. And with this recent rewatch, recent viewing, I kind of remember why I actually enjoy these movies. And so before we get into how I feel about that and the 10 out of 10 and stuff like that, right, what on earth is Paddington actually about? So if you didn't know what it's about, it's pretty much about this bear called Paddington. Who knew that, right? And so you have that, but he is this bear from Peru and he has this family, but then things go, don't go his way, and suddenly, haphazardly, somehow, whatever, he ends up in London, actually going in with this family and settling in with that family. But before you even get to that, the family actually meets him at a train station, which, if you just watch the movie and you see what it's like, the train station, they figured it out. It says Paddington Train Station. And so that's what the original is about. And then second movie, it's kind of like a continuation, and it kind of does a entirely different set of concept, where Paddington is on this journey to get a book for Aunt Lucy. He's in, it's part of the lore of how, Aunt Lucy is a part of his family. And so he gets this book, and there's this villain played by Hugh Grant in the second movie, and you're like, oh, Hugh Grant's like, oh my goodness, he's the thief and he should go to jail. And then it plays out and you get to see how it all plays out. And both of these movies are about, I would say they're an hour and 40 minutes. The original was an hour and 30. The second movie is an hour and 40 minutes. So they are not the most long movies ever. And so how do I actually feel about the original Paddington? So we have definitely padded that bit out, of how you were explaining everything, but I'm just gonna establish and pad out what I'm talking about here. So pretty much what I think about Paddington, the original, it is barely a bad movie at all indeed, because it is so well paced. And yeah, the first 20 to 30 minutes, sure enough, it is a bit weird trying to get into the movie, but when you get past that, you feel like you've just watched something so medical, like a miracle on screen and absolute magic. Because the way that this movie constructs its comedy, it isn't just like funny words and funny dialogue. Like, you actually see visual comedy. For example, whether that's Paddington actually getting two toothbrushes and rubbing it in his ears like this. It's like, oh, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? And then, there's this really, really, really good scene where, he makes a mess in the bathroom, and then the water floats up and he goes down the stairs, and then he's like, woo! And I was laughing my ass off at that scene. And that is one of the most, like, particular things I remember about the Paddington movie, about how he was just down that, he's in the bathroom, he makes the mess, and then he goes right down the stairs, and wow, it's just absolute cinema, and it's just and what's good about it is that it knows what style and it knows what it's presenting to you. So it's self-aware, and it realizes, like, yeah, this is so silly, let's double down, let's go crazy, let's have fun with this. And so that's what I would say about that. You just cannot beat it. It's a really good movie. And so I would absolutely give the original Paddington a solid, like, 8 or 9 out of 10. Especially because if you just, like I said, if you just forget the first 20 to 30 minutes, like, I feel like even that alone, it has to have that, so then you can have, the whole build up and everything. But it is quite a weird movie to get into, because the way it explains everything and where Paddington's origins comes from, it does take a while to get going, and then you get past it, and it's like, okay, let's forget that. We've already moved on from this point, and we're gonna go and enjoy and see what else it has to offer. And so then you get to Paddington 2, where this is actually a really, really surprising sequel. That I will be honest to say that it is, instead of saying very, it's very, very brilliant, because what I find so good and so interesting about the sequel is that instead of rehashing the original, it pretty much, recognizes what the original was, and then it continues the saga, continues the universe and the canon and the lore, and it's like, you know what, let's, instead of doing this thing where he meets the family, because we already know that, let's turn this into a type of action, crazy adventure, where you get to see Paddington pretty much do everything it takes to have his family be, as meaningful as it can be. Because the first movie is already about a family he meets, but this movie is more personal to Paddington and more personal to him. Obviously, the original was, but this is way, way more personal, because you're getting to learn even more about Paddington, and you get to learn so much more stuff to this pivotal point where he actually ends up going to jail. And even when he's going to jail, there is some really, really cool visual comedy in the second movie, because especially when he's doing the washing for all the prisoners, and there's like, he puts this pink stuff or this red stuff in the machine, and he messes everything up, and he makes all the prisoners' clothes look messy, and then he tries to confront this guy called Chuckles, I believe. They actually have a bit of banter, and Paddington actually sprays like mustard and tomato sauce on him, and then they end up developing this relationship and this friendship and stuff like that. And so there's so much there that you can just feel there's a lot of passion towards this franchise, and how they were going to continue that legacy, and how they were going to continue the lore and stuff like that. And even though the second movie is like 10 minutes longer than the original, they pretty much, it doesn't really even feel that long, because you're so enthralled and you're so engaged by these movies that you're like, you know what, who cares if it's an hour and 40 minutes? Who cares if it's a kids movie? Because at the end of the day, these are not really, they are kids movies, but I feel like adults can really appreciate it as well. Especially if you really look between the lines and you see how you really want to feel for Paddington, and just really, really, get invested in the character, and how it was kind of sad when he was like, that little bear just hanging out in that train station. Oh my god, it's so sad. But yeah, that is my type of review here of Paddington. Why am I crying? I don't know why I'm crying. It's maybe it's not staged. I just freaking made that. Alright, my eyes are just watering a wee bit, but yeah. So I would give out of 10. I would give I'd absolutely give Paddington 2 a solid 9. I would say, you could say 7 or 8 out of 10, but I would say that it is actually on the it is on a similar level as the original, but it still does other things compared to the original that you can just kind of enjoy one or the other, and you're just like, yeah, this franchise is just cool and stuff like that. And so yeah, I mean, this is a different type of video, and this might be a longer review, but I did actually spoil some elements of these movies, but bearing in mind, oh, bearing in mind, there we go, that's another pun right there, but bearing in mind, right, this is like, a franchise where you know what you're in for, you know what you're again going to expect, so just bear it in mind and just enjoy it, and make sure you indeed appreciate Aunt Lucy. Bye.